Yeah, and this is the part of it, because if it's a process that takes years, and then it could be a process that it never ends, could be lifelong. I do know people, men and women, who have lost children, and they are 10 years later still, in a very difficult positions because of it. But also, I recently met a man he lost his son about 6 years ago, and he just matter-of-factly told me, the events that resulted in the death of his son, and I was truly amazed at how he was just able to keep himself together, even as telling me about how he lost the child at the age of the child was 16 years old or so. And I can't imagine, I would myself, if I had lost any one of my sons 6 years later, I would probably still be a very distraught man. And as you were speaking just now as well, I realized that maybe the question is a tricky one, because one of the ideas, because maybe I didn't, it's not the proper question, and I don't know if I can even find the proper question, because the idea that I'm actually coming up with is that one wants to be made whole. Yes. But there's no being made whole when this significant part of your life is gone, and it's gone forever. So there's no way to be healed from that condition.
Per se, yes. That's the thing. It's you can't. One of the things is sometimes the resolution is understanding that this is a final thing. The fact is, so you're talking about some of the more extreme things of the human experience, so death. I deal with bereavement, and one of the things in the stages of bereavement is the fact of acceptance. That's the thing. That's one of the paths to self healing, and if you want to call it wholeness, as it's such, is the fact is that to accept that the resolution is final, that there is no fixing it, that actually that this thing has happened, and the resolution is the fact that there is no resolution.
Right.
If you see, that's a very tricky thing. That's a very tricky thing, because actually what people want is they want to feel as if you can fix things. But in this sense, you can't. You can't fix it in the sense of you can't bring that person back.
Right.
I mean, you made that mistake, and you have to live with that mistake. When people make poor decisions in their lives, and sometimes it's the resolution is the fact is that there is no fixing it, but to accept what has happened, and that is the path. Sometimes it's the path to healing.
Well, there have been a couple of events in my life. One was the loss of a very dear friend of mine, and then the catastrophic breakup of a very important relationship. And I remember each day I would wake up after both, and these were years apart. But I would wake up each day and just wish that my nightmare was over.
Yeah.
And then I realized at some point this nightmare is never going to end. And then when I realized that the nightmare won't go away, the nightmare went away. It's like, well, this is the space you're in. This is where you're going to operate from now. It's like, at some point I was so unwilling to let go of my tie to that piece of identity. That it wasn't only until I realized, well, I can no longer be tethered to that particular wish, want, desire. I just, so there's nothing, I had zero control over anything.
So you accepted it, and when I'm accepting the situation that I'm in, I'm accepting the fact that I can no longer be this man.
Right. But that only meant that a certain level of discomfort and pain went away. That's all that made it. It wasn't like, overnight I woke up and suddenly there was, I had rose-tinted glasses.
But acceptance is the first step. That's the thing. So,
it just took me longer than, and I would counseling have assisted with that? I don't know, because like I said last week, I do like to sit in my own thoughts, and I've had several sessions of counseling. One of the reasons I actually got put off counseling for a little bit was because in my very first session was when I did lose this very good friend of mine. After the first session, I was offered a prescription, And when I was crying out for help and saying, no, I want you to tell me how I resolve this.
Yeah.
And so, I pushed back against that somewhat.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that, maybe it's a fallacy, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I think the fact is that as a counsellor, I kind of can't tell you what you need to do because, and I use this phrase all the time, is that I don't know you as well as you do. You know, in a way, somewhere in you, you know what's best for you. Somewhere in you, you kind of know the decisions that you want to make. Somewhere within you, I do believe that there is a path that you would like to take. And part of what I want to do is to bring that to the surface, as it were, bring it to your conscious mind.
Right.
Be then you to be aware of what you would like to do next. And in a way, help you get the courage to move forward in it. It takes bravery, I do think, to move forward in some of these things, well, in the Christian sense, pick up your cross.
Yeah.
That's the sense, is it? That's what picking up your cross I do think it's a physical manifestation of the life that we live. It's you pick up the stuff that you're dealing with and you move forward. And that's really hard. And that is a very tough thing to ask. And I think one of the things that counselling is attempting to do, in a sense, is go to get alongside the person and say, okay, so which way do you want to go? What part of this cross do you need to drop? What part of this cross are you carrying?
See, that's it. You don't get to drop the cross. It's
you get to drop some of it.
Because, well, the end point of carrying your cross is what? Crucifixion. It's a very painful process. It's long and drawn out. This, again, the reality is when you're told to pick up that cross, you are trying to carry that thing to a point of crucifixion.
You are, because I think, so when you're saying about going back to normal, when you're changing, parts of you die. Parts of your personality shift and change, and you become someone new, someone that you didn't know you were beforehand. And I think that's part of that carrying the cross, I think, is something that we go through over and over again, is that there are parts of you that should die.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
In the sense that you're saying is actually that tether to that person that you were, that's a crucifixion. That's you dying to self, getting rid of that stuff and moving forward into something, this new thing. You might not particularly like the new thing,
right,
but actually at some point you get the opportunity to do that again,
right,
and do that again, and do that again.
Right, and so you only lose the cross at the point of the crucifixion when that has died at its death.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then there's an ascension, so to speak of.
Yeah, to something better. And I think, and so the problem is we're talking quite metaphorically about things that have actually concrete life to them, in the sense that you can live these things out. And I think when I was talking about that kind of not knowing what's at the end of that unknown bit, Jordan Peterson always talks about the things in the dark that scare us. That unknown scares the bejesus out of people.
Yeah.
And they don't want to transition into that, or actually sometimes even find out what's in that darkness at the end of that thought. And so actually, again, it takes bravery to continue along the line of thinking to draw out what is actually there for me.
Right.